All right, folks, it is 6 o'clock. Welcome to our Spring Hill separation construction meeting. This is our spring meeting, which means I guess we have to have one in the fall as well. But we are very happy to see you all here. I am Jesse Moose. I'm the construction liaison for the city of Somerville. I work out of the infrastructure and asset management department, mostly working the engineering team. I will allow Dan to introduce himself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Amelin. I'm a project manager with the city's engineering department. And as Jesse mentioned, we work pretty closely together. So we're excited to have this presentation for you this evening. And Jesse, take it away.
Excellent. Next slide, please. All right, guys. So tonight's agenda, we are going to just kind of discuss what is happening on the streets of Spring Hill. So you get to meet myself and Dan and kind of learn also about the contractors. We're going to do a project overview, letting you know kind of what to expect for the whole package. This is a 3-year project. Then we're going to break down the work by street. So you'll know what is happening, where, and what to expect. Most importantly, you're going to get our contact information if you don't already have it, and know how to reach out to us with any questions or concern. And as I said, questions we want you to save till the end, because hopefully we will answer them throughout the presentation and you will be satisfied. Next slide, please, Dan. So the project team. Look at us. So this is myself and Dan when we used to do a TV show at Somerville Media Center to talk about the Somerville Ave construction project. Dan and I have been a legit tag team for 4 years. Dan is still the project manager for the Somerville Ave utility improvement project. And as the construction liaison, I assist him. So we break down responsibilities very differently. So Dan, as a project manager, deals with schedule, payment, and any sort of issues that could come up where it comes to actual engineering needs. What I deal with is community impacts. How does the work we're doing affect residents, traffic, local businesses, and just how we can mitigate that and communicate it best. We've been doing it for 4 years. We have developed quite a relationship, and I think we're good at this. Dan, you think we're good at this?
I think so. I think we couldn't be good if we didn't have each other. As cliche as that may sound. Just speaking as an engineer, it's often difficult to have conversations with the public and business owners, not nearly as well as Jesse can. So he is integral to every construction project we do have in the city, and I'm happy to be working with him here. Yeah,
we are. It's a lovely work marriage, and we enjoy each other's company, and you will learn more as we continue. Next slide, please. So these are our contractors. Dan, you want to give it away?
Sure. So the general contractor that this project was awarded to is PGOso and Sons. For some of you who live in the neighborhood, you may have seen them out working already and seeing their trucks on many of the streets within the project limits. The designer of this project and holding the responsibility of overseeing day-to-day construction activities is Stantec. And we also have Hatch Associates, who is a subconsultant to Stantec. However, we do want to highlight they are the primary designer of green infrastructure. And when that green infrastructure does get installed, they oversee that work on a day-to-day basis as well.
And these are contractors we actually have relationships with. If anyone remembers Cedar Street construction, Gioso was the primary contractor in that from 2017, 2018. Stantec has been involved with the Art Farm project. And then what's the other one that they've been involved with?
A lot of city hydraulic modeling.
Right. And then Hatch is involved with our Somerville Ave green infrastructure project as well. So we've developed relationships with them too, which makes our working relationship improve. When we have issues, we can easily reach out to them, and it's not combative. It's the same team. Next slide, Dan. So Dan's going to lead us in the project overview, and you will see all the exciting construction we have ahead.
Great, thanks, Jesse. And just before we really kind of get into the meat of what this project is about, for those who are unaware or have not been involved with past community meetings and during the design phase, this is just a kind of look back to how this project started and how we ended up where we are today, giving you this presentation. So way back in 2020, which seems forever ago, it's just 2 short years ago, we had a series of 2 public design meetings, which we solicited feedback from the public on certain things that they wanted to see incorporated into the project. 2021, excuse me, in July, we started the bid phase. So in between those 2 periods, December 14th, 2020 and July 2021, Stantec was working diligently to put these plans together and finalize them so that we could go out to bid. The bid was announced in September 2021, and the project was awarded for just a hair under $23.5 million. And if you think about, and you'll see this on the next slide, the area where this project is occurring, $23.5 million is quite significant given the number of streets and the amount of work that we will be accomplishing over the next 2.5 to 3 years here. Last thing I'll mention is the contractor's notice to proceed, which the city issues. That was issued to PG Oso and Sons on November 1st, 2021. For again, many of you that live in the neighborhood, you may have seen them out working already. Granted, this project, the notice to proceed was late fall. They started to mobilize in mid to late January, and as we get closer to the middle of this month, which we can get into here in a few short slides, a lot of the work you've seen to date is going to be ramping up pretty significantly. So that being said, as I mentioned earlier, the limits of work. So this is where your $23.5 million that we are paying for this project, this is where it's all occurring. For those of you who are living outside of Spring Hill or otherwise unfamiliar with the neighborhood, the project is essentially bound, and I'll try to be as general as possible here, essentially bound by Highland Ave to the north, Summer Street to the south, School Street to the east, and I'll say Benton Road. I'm tempted to say Central Street, but we do include Gibbons, Cambria, and Westwood. So Benton Road is kind of our western limit for this project. And as the name gives away, it's Spring Hill sewer separation. So as I get into this project description, I think that one of the primary points of focus for this project is separating sewers. Because the city is so old and our infrastructure is at different areas over 100 years old, a lot of our sewer pipes, a lot of our drainage pipes, way back when, were installed into one pipe only. Our goal here is to separate drainage from sanitary flows. It's an outdated practice. It's not, when the system overflows and surcharges, there's the possibility that these empty into the Miller's River or Alewife Park. In this case, I believe it's the Miller's River. So it's been one of the city's goals, and this is essentially the similar type of project to the Somerville Ave Utility and Streetscape Improvements project that we're nearing completion on. We're trying to take the drainage out of the sewer, have 2 separate systems. Not only does it improve the quality of stormwater that we can infiltrate back into the ground, which is green stormwater infrastructure. I'll get to that shortly. It also reduces the capacity of our sewer pipes, reduces the chances of localized flooding. It reduces the amount of waste that we need to get treated through the MWRA. So there's less treatment fees for that. And that's really the crux of all the underground work. In addition to that, we'll be installing all new water mains, new water services, and all the streets mentioned above. That improves water quality, it improves fire flow. To go along with that, we'll be installing and replacing a lot of existing hydrants and installing new hydrants. So that helps with fire suppression. And it should also improve water pressure. Getting to the surface and above ground, we've got green stormwater infrastructure and trees. We do have a slide on trees coming up next, so I'll save the spiel for that. But for green stormwater infrastructure, we have actually quite an array of different items here. We have subsurface infiltration trenches, tree infiltration trenches, bioretention basins, different planting areas, permeable pavers, some areas of porous asphalt, some areas in the back of sidewalk of flexible porous asphalt where we otherwise can't fit concrete. So all this is to say that with all these green infrastructure benefits, it again allows us to send more water back into the ground and have it recharge the groundwater system rather than to see it enter into a sewer system. So it's a lot of great things there to help reduce, flooding, improve quality of our stormwater that can go back in the ground, and so forth. The last thing I'll mention in terms of mobility, the completion of this project, all the streets that are included in the limits, and as Jesse mentioned earlier, we'll go through each one here momentarily. All new sidewalks, we'll have different areas, we'll have cycle tracks, we'll have raised crosswalks, speed humps. Nearly every street gets paved one way or another. It's mostly mill and overlay on all the streets, so we'll have new roadways and new striping, new signage, the list goes on. I think if I keep talking, I'll still be here by the time you folks wake up tomorrow. So that being said, quick update on trees, and this is something we, as we go street by street, you'll have a better sense of, if you live on a particular street, how many new trees to expect. In total, we're only removing 25 trees. Originally, we planned to remove 10. Our senior urban forestry and landscape planner, Vanessa Bukili, and tree warden, Breck Miller, joined us on a site walk. We identified 5 additional trees that were determined to be hazardous. So those have already come down. I think there might be one left. But we had to add those 5, and there's 10 additional ash trees that are slated for removal. They haven't been removed yet. And the reason for that is due to poor and failing health. Those 10 trees were presented at a public tree hearing back on February 10th. So time for the good news, tree plantings. As I mentioned, we're gonna remove 25, but we're installing a total of 185 new trees. That's a lot of trees for this area. So it's something that we're all very excited about. And as I mentioned, as we go through the slides here, you'll be able to see how many new trees we'll plant on each street. And before we get there, one last quick item is our look ahead schedule. I know the focus of tonight's meeting is on this calendar year construction season. I did want to provide the following 2 years, just for context and to give you folks the big picture here. At the early onset of 2022, here we are in April. We're just about ready to start all our underground utility work. Work to date, for folks who live in the neighborhood and have seen GSO out working, has been mostly test pits, tree pruning, tree removals, certain things that they're able to do during winter conditions without fully ripping up the street, with the potential of having a snow emergency and parking on one side. So as we get into April, we'll be really starting our excavation work. The focus for this construction season through the fall is going to be Summer Street, which is really call it from Spring Street to School Street. That's where GSO will be working. They'll also be working on Avon Street, Central Street, and possibly Westwood Road. And all this underground utility work is, excavators, loaders, they're out digging up the road, putting in new drainage, putting in new sewers, lining sewers. We were able to line a few sewers already. There's still a few streets that are outstanding that will be coming soon. And the other thing I'll mention too, as I just referenced, where they'll be working on Summer Street. Right now, for the next 6 months or so, we're planning on Eversource Gas performing utility work to install a new gas main on Summer Street. They're going to be working on the east side of School Street. So until they can finish up this fall, 6 months from now, GSO is going to be working on the west side of School Street. When Eversource finishes, Geoso will be able to then work on that section of Summer Street. They do have utility work going down to Wesley Park, so it's going to be a fun construction season. A lot of work ahead.
And for those who remember from 2020, this Eversource gas work is actually the continuation of work that really should have happened then. What happened was that the contractors nicked the brick sewer, and they were really unable to continue without Geoso coming in and lining the sewer, which they were able to take care of a couple weeks ago.
So we're hoping for better success this time around.
Right.
Really quickly, 2023 we'll have obviously more utility work ongoing. As we work through Summer, Avon, Central, and Westwood this year. Next year's schedule shows us working on Berkeley, Cambria School, Gibbons, Oxford, and Highland Ave. Simultaneously, while we're finishing the utility work on Summer, Avon, Central, and Westwood, we'll be able to start surface work. Coming in 2024, at that point, all the work remaining will be surface and streetscape work. Substantial completion is May 31st, 2024. Final completion September 28th, 2024. So here's the moment we've all been waiting for. This is going to be our breakdown of work. We're going to go street by street. It's we organize it alphabetically. So for those on Westwood and Summer, I'm sorry you're at the end. For those on Avon, congratulations, you're up first. And before I get into some details here, I just want everyone to know and understand that each of these slides, as we go street by street, I don't want to sound too repetitive. A lot of the work is the same. There are different unique elements on certain streets that I can point out as we go, but I can run through the first 2 or 3 streets here, give you a sense of what to expect, and then as I go on, like I said, I won't repeat everything. I'll point out unique things and little nuances here and there, but otherwise I'll scroll through the slides slow enough so that you folks can read them. And then quick spoiler alert, normally we'd mention this at the end, but this presentation is going to be posted on the city's website, so anyone who wants to refer back to the slideshow will have the ability to do so. So that being said, Avon Street, we're going to start utility work this month. Surface work won't start until a year from now, next year. So the utility work that we're looking to start is CIPP lining. For those who don't know, it's essentially a practice where you can take a liner, think of a sock, and it's dragged through an existing sewer main. It's blown up, and then it cures like concrete. And essentially, by doing that process, you've created a pipe within a pipe. And the reason we do this is basically to improve longevity of our existing network of sewer pipes. At times, it could be cheaper than replacing a sewer altogether. Other times, it's not financially sound to do so, depending on the situation. So Avon Street is actually kind of a hybrid. There are sections of sewer that we have lined. We will be installing some new sewer structures and pipes throughout the street. We're going to be installing new drainage structures and pipes, so kind of building out that drainage system to allow us to separate stormwater from sanitary flows. We'll also be installing new water mains and new water services to each individual home. And this is kind of a unique feature, part of our green infrastructure. Most of the green infrastructure you can see on the slide is under streetscape improvements. Because this is subsurface, I've kept it over to the left. It's a subsurface infiltration trench, which allows stormwater, once again, to infiltrate back into the ground and take that out of our system altogether. Starting next year, again, we'll probably reiterate all of this streetscape surface work come this fall when we have another meeting. But just to give you folks a sense of what we plan to do in a year from now. There'll be new sidewalks. Almost every street's going to have new sidewalks and curb bump outs. One of the goals here is traffic calming. So by having curb bump outs at intersections of side streets and kind of necking down the width of the street, it calms traffic so that people aren't flying up and down the road and have to slow down and obey the speed limit. Avon Street has a neat little quirk here with new new benches at the bus stop. So we're going to improve that bus stop area over by Central. And then a lot of the new green infrastructure that we are going to be installing, in addition to the subsurface infiltration trench, obviously new trees. In fact, Avon Street gets 37 new trees. We're only going to be removing 4, I believe. We'll also have a bioretention basin and a planting area. Moving on to Berkeley Street. Some of you have already noticed work going on just this week. For those who live on Berkeley Street, Gioso has been installing some drainage, some new catch basins there this week. And unfortunately, they encountered some ledge. So for those who have been hearing constant banging, if you work from home or stay at home, apologies. Not something that we want people to have to suffer through, but unfortunately, it's something we encountered and have to remove in order to get these drainage structures in. Surface work, other than the drainage work, utilities really won't start until 2023. Surface work is going to start summer of 23 in June. Again, subsurface work, underground utility work. This is all things I just previously mentioned. New sewer main installation, new drainage structures and pipes, water main services, another subsurface infiltration trench. For streetscape improvements, sidewalks, curb bump outs, new trees, planting area. Berkeley Street gets 28 new trees. So that's pretty significant. Cambria Street, a lot of the same. So I'll just leave this up here for a few minutes, few seconds. Carter Terrace, I will say, because this intersects with Summer Street, work on Carter is going to start this month as they continue working on Summer. And there will be a raised crosswalk at the end of Carter at Summer Street. That's a unique feature I want to point out. Central Street, I'll spend a little bit of time talking about because that is one of the streets I'll be working on pretty heavily here this spring and summer. A lot of the subsurface improvements are the same of things I previously mentioned. One thing I do want to note for streetscape improvements is the flexible porous asphalt sidewalks. What that is essentially for some of these existing trees and large diameter trees that have such an extensive root system, where we wouldn't be able to install a concrete panel behind it without chopping all the roots out and potentially harming the tree. There is this product, this flexible porous asphalt that allows us to provide a smooth walking surface that's safe over existing tree roots without damaging them because it's porous. Any runoff from the concrete sidewalk or any rainwater is going to go right through that back into the ground. Another key thing I do want to mention is on Central, both sides of the street, we will have new cycle tracks. I believe they're elevated off the roadway, so there is that vertical buffer, so to speak, that we'll have at the end of this project. There's Gibbon Street. Highland Ave. The probably most important thing I do want to mention about Highland Ave is through this project, we're only addressing subsurface utility work. There won't be any streetscape improvement component of this project. Knowing how much work is going on just on Highland Ave, and especially with all the work at the high school, it was decided not to include any of this streetscape work in this project. Instead, a separate future project will incorporate these new designs in roadway resurfacing. The completion of this project, because we do have utility work on Highland, it will be permanent trench paving to restore all the trenches that we need to do for all the drainage and sewer work and water main work that we'll be performing.
But from this project, Dan, we're not doing any sort of bike improvements. This is mainly just subsurface work, and then there'll be subsequent meetings to discuss any sort of, bike lanes, removal of parking. That's another project. I just want to make that clear because I'm sure we'll get that question.
100% correct. Yeah. So all of that's going to be in a separate future project, not included in this Spring Hill sewer separation. Spot on. Thank you. Moving on to Oxford Street, a lot of the same. School Street, a lot of the same. One thing to note is, given the direction of travel on School Street, knowing it's a one-way southbound, there will be speed humps installed once we pave as a traffic calming measure. And Summer Street, this is another big one here for this year. As I mentioned earlier, with Eversource gas working east of School Street, the next 6 months, Geoso will be focused on the west side of School Street, just maybe 200 feet west of Spring, I think is the western limit there. Come this fall, once Eversource gas finishes up, Geoso is then able to work east of School Street down to Bow and Wesley Park. One of the coolest features I think this project has is specific to the intersection of Quincy Street and Summer Street. There's going to be, I think for those who are familiar with that intersection, there's kind of this big radius that's currently striped out there with kind of dead space asphalt in the middle. For those who are familiar, know what I'm talking about. We're actually going to turn that into a little pocket park, and new plantings, new benches. It's going to have permeable pavers, bike racks. So it'll be a nice place for those walking up and down the street, for anyone cycling to kind of stop, head over, take a seat, relax, and enjoy all of the new work this project has to offer. Another quick thing on green infrastructure. As you can see, Summer Street, given the length, this is actually one of the better streets to try to incorporate as much of this green infrastructure work as we can. So this is kind of the top tier, so to speak, of what's on the menu. We've got bioretention basins, irrigated planting areas, subsurface tree trenches, and 38 new trees. So it's exciting. And then lastly, Westwood Road.
Thank you for waiting.
Sorry to keep you waiting, all the residents from Westwood. This is another street marked for construction this year, similar to Summer, Central, and Avon. I won't go through all the features again, but it's pretty much the same as some of the other slides you've seen. New sewers, new drains, lining portions of existing sewer, new water, et cetera, et cetera. And as we're now at Westwood, I just want to mention, for those who live on Hersey Street or Trull Lane, I didn't forget you. Because your streets aren't very long, and please don't take offense, most of the work that's happening that you would consider either of those streets would either be, it's been mentioned for Oxford Street or Berkeley Street or so on and so forth. So I think for residents on Trull, a private developer at 124 Highland has been doing work. They installed a new water main on Trull Lane, and they'll be installing some new drainage on Trull Lane that will be tying into, or vice versa. So I just wanted to quickly mention that, because unfortunately we don't have slides for those two streets. Great.
All right, so we've talked about the project and kind of what to expect. Now we got to talk about the most important issue is, how do you get in touch with us when you have questions? This is going to be a 3-year project, and something's going to come up. It's inevitable. So we want to make sure you, the viewers, know how to get in touch with us and who to get in touch with. So next slide, please. All right, so I'm your main contact. As a construction liaison for the city, I handle any sort of coordination and communication of all our projects. You can email me, you can call me, that's my cell phone. I will answer when you call, unless I'm in a meeting, or you can tweet at me. If you were unaware, I run the Somerville infrastructure account. If you follow me, thanks. Dan is really handling the project. So like, I will talk to Dan if I think there's something that we need to come together on and talk to the contractor, but most of the stuff I try and handle myself so he can deal with this project as well as some other projects that he is managing as well. We have a centralized email address. This is what we've actually set about 4 or 5 years ago when the green line really went heavy. It's construction@somerville.gov. This goes to multiple people in the engineering department as well as some people in the communications department, and allows us to kind of triage the issue. Usually it actually is myself or Erica Mace, our public information officer, who will answer, but it allows a lot of eyes on the issue. And then finally, we have our own webpage that I will update as we have kind of significant milestones. I try and do it weekly if it's something big. You can follow along on that as well. Anything else, Dan, you think they should know about?
Yeah, just quickly, for those who are interested in looking at the plans, they are available on the website. I believe if you do log on to the link here in the presentation, they should be on the right-hand side, should have a section, and there's 3 different volumes. So for anyone who's interested, there's probably 200 different drawings to look at. But those are available, and should you have any questions on those, please, again, don't hesitate to reach out.
All right, next slide. So now we come to the talent portion of our competition. Oh, sorry, questions. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and I will unmute you and we will discuss the issue. I'm going to start with Allison Drasner. Oh, Allison, you look like you put your hand down. I think I'm having trouble unmuting. Hold on a second. Dan, do you have the ability to do it on your end? Because you're the host?
Yes, I do.
Okay. You want to unmute Anton Tutter first? So that's first in line.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thanks for this update. I know it's a really Herculean undertaking. So kudos to both of you for managing such a big project. I wasn't sure if we were going to have audio questions, so I actually entered my questions in the chat, but I can just repeat them. So my first, I have 5 questions that hopefully I can ask pretty quickly. One is that given that some of the utility work will not start for a full year on some of these streets, why are the trees already protected with 2x3s? Shouldn't that have waited until closer to construction time? Another question is, why are there just a few select trees around the neighborhood have supplemental cages around them that were built in addition to the 2x3s? And I'm just curious why a few select trees were chosen for those cages and not others. The third question is, maybe I don't understand the plans correctly. Maybe I misread them, but it shows that for some side streets, only sections of the sidewalks are going to be rebuilt. Is that correct? It looks like, there's sections where they show where there's going to be new concrete, but then it alternates with sections that are existing concrete. And I'm wondering how that's going to affect existing ADA non-compliant regions of sidewalks. So for example, there's some areas where the sidewalks are very narrow, or there's a hydrant in the middle of the sidewalk, making it ADA non-compliant. And is that going to be addressed? And then I guess if I can ask one more question.
Well, actually, Anton, let's start with your first question. Let's answer that one, and then so we're not all overwhelmed. Tree protection went up site-wide because we have vehicles going around the project. It's really just to protect our current trees. We have trucks going in and out of Belmont Street, School Street, Central Street. We just want to make sure our trees are the most protected. Dan, do you want to speak to the second question?
Yeah, no, let me just back up to the first question and to go along with what Jesse just said, Anton. One of the initial facets of work that's already started is test pitting. And there's a series of test pits, which is, they've got to excavate on all of these streets before any real work starts to get a better sense of what utilities are they going to come across. Are there any surprises in certain areas that we're focused on to not only give Geoso and ourselves, the benefit of understanding, what potential challenges are we up against if they find something, say, on Oxford Street, or if they're working on Gibbons, and they have this opportunity up front to kind of start investigating certain areas of the roadway where we think potential conflicts lie. So knowing that work is sporadic and isn't necessarily tied to any individual street on a certain timeline, that kind of goes along with why we want to protect all these trees, step one, and really eliminate any risk of damaging an existing tree throughout that process, if that makes sense. To answer your second question on supplemental cages, I think, and I can confirm for you and follow up if you're able to put your contact information in the chat. From what I understand, Anton, it's kind of a bigger protection and a better protection than just putting timbers around a tree, whether it be due to the tree's health, the condition of the tree itself, what the sidewalk is. I think in some areas we have this kind of supplemental cage around it. If the sidewalk's protruding up and there's certain, I want to say tripping hazard risks, I could be wrong. But that's my understanding, and I'm happy to follow up to get you a better answer. I'm going to follow up with our senior urban forestry and landscape planner. It's a really long title, Vanessa Bukili, and she would probably have a better answer for you than what I can provide right now off the top of my head.
I mean, one of the other things is that, large diameter trees do necessitate that protection, and we just want to protect the trees more than anything.
I believe the next question, I don't know if we're on 3 or 4, Anton, I apologize, was about the sidewalk, certain sections of sidewalk being replaced. And this was something that we had considered. Do we redo all the sidewalks for every single street? If we did, the cost of this project would be substantially higher. So what we did through the design process is identify, what areas of sidewalk are we going to be damaging when we go to upgrade a water service? Are we going to have to take 1 or 2 panels out to trench across, from the water main, across the road, through the sidewalk, right up to the property line? Trees that get removed, oftentimes the roots come up. Hydrants get removed, we need to replace the panel. So some streets we do have, a very high portion of existing sidewalk being replaced. Other streets, as you mentioned, it's kind of here and there, in between existing. It is an ADA challenge at times, I understand that, and there'll be plenty of, I guess, opportunities is the right word. As we go along, we can identify certain areas. If we need to add additional sidewalk locations to be reconstructed, we can do so. Just keeping in mind, what the project budget is, what is the effect on the timeline and the schedule and things like that. So it's not something I want to tell you we're going to rule out and we have to stick to the plan 100%. Oftentimes it's not the case. There's potentially other areas for improvement we can make along the way.
And then the fourth question that we haven't heard yet.
Oh, yeah. So regarding the bump outs, so I think I remember seeing an earlier version of the design, maybe from a year ago, and it showed bump outs at the hydrants. And when I saw that, I thought it was brilliant because it actually it basically kills 2 birds with 1 stone. It not only acts as traffic calming, but it also eliminates a problem that's been around forever, which is people unlawfully parking in front of a hydrant. Now I'm noticing on the new version of the plans, there are there's fewer bump outs sort of midway along the side streets. I mean, they're at the intersections. But there's a few that are mid-block, and I don't really understand the logic behind like why that location was chosen. And then I'm wondering why there aren't bump outs where there are hydrants, because you can't really consider that a parking spot anyway. So it seems like any place there's a hydrant would be a perfect opportunity to put a bump out. So I'm just curious why that's that way.
Sure, and to speak to the bump outs, kind of, in the middle of these streets, I'm drawing a blank. I was just looking at a plan earlier. The majority of the reason why we have bump outs in the middle of a roadway, rather, in addition to each end and each intersection with other streets, is a traffic calming measure, and understanding that it does remove parking as a result. But back in the design process, if I'm not mistaken, there was enough voices that had concerns about cars traveling faster than they should on some of these streets. As to why every hydrant location doesn't have a bump out, I don't have a good answer for you at the moment, and I can follow up on that and let you know.
I mean, just to be clear, I'm just going to make one more comment, and then I'll let others ask their questions. It's just no, I understand the traffic calming, and I am all in favor of bump outs mid-block. I'm just curious that the drawing had, and it showed an example on Oxford Street, a bump out very close to School Street. Not the bump out that's built into the corner, but just, I think, maybe 2 or 3 houses in, there's a bump out. It just didn't seem like it just didn't seem like it was of any benefit. Like, it would have been more benefit to have bump outs, more evenly spaced out. One mid-block between Trull Lane and School Street, for example. So I was just curious why it seems like the bump out placements that are occurring not at the intersections seem random. But I guess that's, in the bigger picture, that's not the most important thing. So I guess I'll stop here.
Well, we appreciate the questions, and Anton, you and I definitely talk every once in a while, and I can follow up with you directly.
Okay.
And I'll take a stab at an answer here and still follow up nonetheless. But some of these areas, like the one on Oxford that you're mentioning, Anton, we may have a bump out. We may have an existing tree where we need to have a curb bump out and basically run the sidewalk, call it, into the roadway around the tree and then back in. There's several instances of that throughout the project where there wouldn't be enough width, wouldn't be ADA compliant to maintain the sidewalk behind an existing tree. So we opted to essentially bump the sidewalk out around some of these areas. So that's one reason. And again, like Jesse and I have said, we can go back to the team here and chat about that some more and come up with a more detailed answer for you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Cool.
And please don't forget to include your contact information, or feel free to reach out to us, with the contact information we have on the slides. That'd be greatly appreciated if you could.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next person looks like it's Barbara Mangum. Can you unmute her, Dan?
Barbara, good evening.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Okay, so you can read my question there. So I'm the president of the board of the Somerville Museum, and you know that we're concerned because of Westwood Road and Central. That's right where our location is. And of course, we've been working hard to really keep our building up to the historic standards required of the Somerville Historic Preservation Commission, and also, getting our accessibility in and things like that for having a new elevator. So we're working very hard on all these things, and we have a couple questions. So one of them is that there are Sanborn bricks, which are historic, that have been used on the sidewalk in front of the museum on Central Street. And we are very much hoping that they actually need to be reset, not those particularly, but they continue up to the museum's Central Street entrance. And we know that some of those need to be reset. Right now, I don't think that they pose a problem to a wheelchair, but it sounds like you're planning to maybe get rid of those and replace them. And I'm hoping that, at the very least, they can be saved and if possible, reused. What do you say to that?
I say you're in luck. We do have in our plans to basically save those bricks and reset them
Yippee!
into a better surface than what there is now. And I believe, don't quote me on this, I'll double check, but I think there's a historic manhole too at that corner
Oh, yes, there is.
that will also be saving.
Right.
So-
And I think there were also, you had mentioned even earlier, there are large granite posts that are the historic, that go into that historic district, and you'll be hopefully not only resetting those, but also getting the city to remove the graffiti, which we have been trying to do for some time.
We are resetting them. I'll follow up on the graffiti. I actually
Thank
didn't know there
you.
was graffiti, but that's good to know. So I'm glad.
Yes, it's, for some reason, it says Yale on the side. I have no idea why.
This is the Harvard town.
Yeah, that would seem likely. Okay, the other question, I'm sure I have many more, but I also feel really badly for the people on Westwood Road because, we took over their street for so long. So I have a feeling they're going to be upset, not just with you, but with us for any other work that continues on Westwood Road. So I just ask that you be as kind as possible. The other thing is that we talked last year about the need to compensate for the loss of parking on Central Street and for the bump outs that are being proposed on Westwood Road. I didn't know whether you've already taken some of those changes into account. I just tried looking at some of the resources that you had on your website, and I don't see anything that detailed. So I'm just wondering if you could talk about that.
I'll have to go back and to be quite honest with you, Barbara, I actually was not involved in the design of this project. We have another project manager,
Right.
Halima Qureshi. She has since moved on.
Oh, okay.
And that was, but however, knowing that Stantec is the constant here, they've been here since the very beginning. I can follow up internally with Stantec on the compensation for parking.
Yeah, because there, I would guess like to meet with you all again and go over this because we had talked about it before. There's a whole bunch of issues as regarding we needing turnaround space, drop off space, trying to deal with the bump out. Right now we have the elevator that has just been approved and, inspected, but there's no way for someone in a wheelchair to get from the sidewalk to the elevator just yet. So we're looking at different ways of doing that temporarily. And then when you all, do your kind of solution. So I would just, I guess, ask, maybe we should set up a meeting and just talk about all this.
Yeah, Barbara, why don't let us meet with our contractors first and review the plans, and then we can set up something with the museum, yourself and any other representatives.
Yeah. And I'm also concerned because there's a lot of bump outs. One of the solutions to the parking problem had been to create more public parking and not just residential parking on the other surrounding streets. But it sounds like that might be, a conflict with this idea of creating other bump outs and things like that. So we need to see like a whole comprehensive thought process about this. Thank you.
Yep, great, thank you. Barbara, I would ask I don't know if we have your contact information, but if you're able to email construction@Somerville, and
I will.
Jesse and I will both receive that and we can follow up.
Thank you so very much. I will do that.
Great, thank you so much.
Sharina. All right, next up is Brett Solari. Unmute Brett, please.
Hey there. Hey guys, sorry about that. I missed the beginning of the meeting, but is it safe to assume that all these slides will be online?
Yes.
Awesome, cool. Because I set my schedule and I didn't get a notification, so I missed it. So I just want to verify that. And then you guys are open to meeting in person for with stuff?
Why don't you send us an email, Brett, and we can see what the issue is and we can discuss it from there. But
All right, awesome, guys. Thank you so much. All right, look forward to meeting with you guys.
Great.
All right, have a great night.
Thank you, Brett.
All right, and our next participant is Joel Bennett. Dan, can you unmute Joel, please?
Joel, good evening.
Hey there. I have a few comments, questions. My name's Joel Bennett. I live on Belmont Street. And we're not in the project, but we actually have a fair bit of burden from the project because of the staging area at the School of Nursing building. And one of the things that I've observed is, and I'm very concerned about, the size of the vehicles that are driving around doing this work. I know it's a little late in the game, but I kind of wanted to put it out there as maybe for something in the future to think about when hiring companies that are going to be working in an urban environment like this, to be thinking about the vehicles that they have and the safety of them driving in the city, like Somerville. The front end loader is monstrous and the blind spots are huge. And I really fear for the safety of people in the neighborhood. You probably heard the other day at Belmont and Highland, we had a big truck that was stuck for about 20 minutes because it couldn't make the turn out of Belmont Street, caused all kinds of havoc. So that's kind of my big topic. And I know it isn't really something that, it's like you guys are going to be able to fix. It's more something to think about. The other observations I've had is I feel like the parking signage is really poorly done. So we have a bunch of spots on our street and there are these little puny cones that have these no parking signs wrapped around. And we're going to be dealing with this for a really long time. And I feel like there should be really clear okay, where can you park and where can't you? You shouldn't have to get out of your car to kind of read a sign that you can't really read. And that's one. But the other comment is, because the roads are so bad, the patching just like already off the bat just seems like it's not getting a lot of attention. And I feel like the project's just started. If we don't keep up on that, we're going to be, it's going to be like going down a war zone down some of these streets. But I cycle a lot, so I notice it even more. And my last comment is, I'm curious as to why we would send questions and answer questions to use and not use 311. So that's
sure. Well, I'm going to actually take the last one first.
great.
You can use 311.
Okay.
If you call 311, it goes to me. If you call the mayor's office, it goes to me. If you call engineering, it goes to me. So it's up to you. I'm happy with 311.
Okay.
But it will eventually just get to me. So I'm just giving you the option of coming to me first. The first question, we do take safety. It's very important. We have constant conversations with the contractor. With any issue pops up, they didn't have a detail one day, or maybe one person's driving too fast. We bring this to their attention. We take this seriously, and you can reach out to me directly or call 311. It gets to me and we will discuss it with them. We don't, everything is an issue and we bring it to their attention. For size of trucks, this level of construction kind of needs large trucks. What do you say, Dan?
Yeah, this is one of the challenges, Joel, and I completely understand what you're saying. having these mammoth pieces of equipment out moving around on narrow streets in a relatively densely populated area, right? One of the challenges, I guess, with I'm sure you're faced with and seeing these pieces of equipment, given the size of some of the structures that we're installing, for instance, a catch basin structure, 6 foot tall, 4 or 5 foot diameter. They weigh thousands of pounds and they're getting buried, in some areas 15, 20 feet deep. Smaller pieces of equipment wouldn't be able to pick those up, wouldn't be able to dig that deep. However, and please don't misunderstand that as an excuse for what we have. Point well taken, and I definitely think that's something we can consider moving forward when we design projects. So thank you for bringing that up.
They do have, there is some technology that's coming out that is putting different types of cameras. I don't know if any of the front end loaders that they're using do that.
I actually don't either. So that's a great question. I can forward over to Gioso. And to Jesse's point too, and if they don't have cameras and where we have what we have, any instances that come up, and there's, to be quite honest, been at least 2 or 3 where we don't have police details. They put in a request for details, whether the details are busy or they're on shift or for whatever reason we don't get any. We've talked with Gioso about, that may restrict the work you can do. We don't want you driving around on side streets where you shouldn't be. We don't want you going in the wrong directions on one-way streets without essentially being chaperoned by a police detail and a safety officer for that matter. And to get to your kind of last question about why reach out to us directly, for anything project related, this is going to be our work every day for the next 3 years. If you feel comfortable with 311, by all means, I would encourage you to use it. But like Jesse said, it'll find its way back to us eventually, and we can respond accordingly. So, if you're out cycling and you come across a trench patch that's uneven, or is the asphalt's falling apart and it's making an unsafe condition, please let us know. We'll follow up on our end with the project team and get that rectified. We don't want to have instances and situations out there where the pavement's degraded to a point where it's unsafe. So please let us know.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay, and up next is Ronit Prower. Can you unmute Ronit, please?
Hey guys, yeah, my name's Ronit. Nice to meet you all, and thank you for your work on this. I hope you can hear me okay. I have what might be an extremely naive question, and it's not the one that I put in the chat asking what a historic manhole is, although that I'm very curious about that. I think I just wanted to understand when you guys are talking about the subsurface work or the surface work, what does that look like in a given location? And again, sorry if this is naive, but does that mean there will be no road and it will be completely torn up and there won't be vehicle access to, our driveways or, to the road at all or to the sidewalk? And if, what is the level of disruption that will happen? And kind of how, I guess I just want to understand what that actually looks like on a day-to-day basis. Thank you.
Sure, and I did see your message in the chat, so I can answer that too. But first, and what that looks like, all this subsurface utility work, all this underground work, more often than not, they'll tackle one thing at a time, right? They'll focus on sewer for a section of roadway, come back, focus on drainage, come back, focus on installing new water mains. So to be quite honest with you, there likely will be times where driveway access may be restricted. It may be for a couple hours, it may be for a workday, but it won't be for an overnight period of time. In the event those situations come up, we will alert you as a homeowner or a resident that in a few days. We like to try to at least give 48 hours notice, if not more. In a few days, you will be, restricted. You can't use your driveway. However, you can park on the street after hours. When they're doing road work, our goal is to always maintain one lane of traffic. Mostly for emergency services, we want to be able to have the Somerville Fire Department get by, Cataldo ambulance get by. If the police are responding to emergency, we want to provide them a lane. So we won't be closing whole streets and ripping up the entire road as you see it today. It'll be certain kind of linear trenches for, it could be 100 feet, could be 500 feet at a time, depending on the work. And, each and every day that goes by, they trench, they do this work in the roadway or in the sidewalk, and they, patch it so that it can be reopened and used by the general public at the end of the workday, 4, 5, 6 o'clock, depending on. And for any sidewalk disruptions, we do have a rather rigorous process for traffic management plans. We do ask contractors to specify where is the sidewalk going to be impacted, as in where will you be digging? If so, what's the pedestrian detour signage look like? Where's the nearest crosswalk that someone can use when the sidewalk's unavailable? And anytime we do that, and again, this is notifying residents and notifying homeowners, we'll be working on the sidewalk, we're going to remove it and replace it. More often than not, we'll be able to provide a ramp to the stairs or doorway of each home, so that in the event we're pouring concrete and it's wet, you should still be able to get in and out of your house. So it's kind of a case-by-case basis, and I'm happy to kind of go through that, in further detail. I can send you an email and kind of share photos from previous projects where we've done similar types of work, just to give you a better sense of what to expect. On the historic manhole, we call them historic. They're manholes that were essentially crafted in foundries over 100 years ago. We've got some manholes, I think the oldest I've seen has a stamp on it. It's cast iron. It weighs 200 something pounds. It says 1832. And obviously the product itself, a manhole cover, a manhole frame, they've been improved over time to take greater and greater load from vehicles. But seeing some of these manholes from 140 plus years ago is something that as a city we want to try to preserve, because it's something that's rapidly disappearing each project that goes on every year. So we like to try to preserve as much history as we can.
Thank you. That's super helpful. I had never heard of one, so I was just really curious. Can I just, I understand that you guys have got a lot of plans in place to kind of mitigate disruption. Just again, just to follow up, and I'm sorry if this is naive. So let's say they're doing one, you were saying they're doing one patch of road, and they might do water and then patch it up and then come back and do sewer and then come back and patch it up. How long does a construction crew stay in one place doing those various things? I guess my question is, as a Somerville resident, are they going to be outside my house for a week or for a month?
It really varies based on street and kind of what they're doing. So the slides that we kind of went through, and you saw some streets had more stuff on it than others. So what street do you live on?
I'm on Summer Street, right near Benton.
We don't have a lot of great news for you. But to be honest, and I think that's what we want to do, is be honest, and we don't want to mislead you. If you live on Summer near Benton, Summer is one of the streets with the most amount of work on it. Let me put it that way. So it's likely that the crews, although they may not be directly in front of your house for a month straight, they'll be working in and around your house on Summer Street. So it's not something that one day they'll be working, the next day you won't hear anything. You probably will. That being said, we encourage them to move as quickly as possible. If there's instances where you've got you're putting in a new sewer and you're putting in a new drain and they're close enough, we can allow, within reason and as long as it's safe, allow them to do that work simultaneously in the same trench. so that they're not doing one, finishing, and then coming back and doing the other. So that's something we encourage and we want to see happen if it makes sense, just to improve the schedule, get them in and out quicker, if that makes sense. But again, we don't want to sugarcoat anything. Just given your location, you probably will experience quite a bit of construction through the summer here.
Great, thanks. That's super helpful.
Sure, not a problem. Thank you.
All right. Anton, I'm going to come back to you because I have someone else who hasn't asked a question yet. So Dave Affey is next.
Dave, good evening.
Hi, thanks guys. Appreciate the meeting and all the great information. I'm also on Summer Street. I'm at the other side, close to Bow Street. And, I know this project isn't, specifically about flooding, and there's other projects going on in the city to mitigate flooding. But I was wondering if you could speak to that issue a little bit, and if, any of the drainage work is going to address some of the flooding. I'm specifically talking about the stretch that over the past couple of years has gotten a lot of flooding right by Nunziato Field. That whole stretch on Summer Street has had a couple severe flooding incidents. So would love to hear more about that.
Sure, that's a great question. And I'm actually really happy to answer this because it is related to the other project I have, hopefully finishing up within the next year, Somerville Ave, if you're familiar with it. So in essence, in the answer, I guess generally speaking, is yes. All the new drainage work we're doing by separating the stormwater flows, the drainage flows from the existing sewer pipes, it will reduce flooding. One of the reasons there is localized flooding, especially down by Nunziato and kind of in between, Prescott, Putnam, Vinyl, that section of Summer Street. If you think about where, again, just knowing a lot of the sewers within the neighborhood are all combined sewers because of their age. All of those flows travel down, go down Bow Street, enter into Union Square. And from that point on, all the way down to, say, kind of Target, McGrath Highway area, Medford Street. That's kind of the terminus of our combined sewer network. And we're moving away from combined sewers because of reasons I've mentioned, right? It's a combination of sanitary flows, and we're taking all the runoff from the streets, from the sidewalks, and those are going into the same pipe. So when we have really high intensity rainstorms over short durations, say you get an inch of rain in a couple hours, just that volume of stormwater entering the combined sewers, there's not enough capacity to hold all that. And that was a historic flooding problem in Union Square, which the Somerville Ave project addressed. We put in a giant 14-foot by 6-foot stormwater culvert, which I think holds 800,000 gallons of water. It also acts as storage. But previously, before that Somerville Ave project started and we did all that work, knowing the Spring Hill neighborhood kind of was further upstream, when Union Square would flood, all of that, the pipes would surcharge and overflow, and that flooding would continue on and carry up to Spring Hill. So that's kind of the historic flooding issue, as sort of a description of why that's been a problem, right? By putting in new catch basins, new drain manholes, putting in new drainage pipes, and then connecting all that drainage down through Bow Street, and then having that connect to our new stormwater culvert on Somerville Ave, that takes a good portion of what was previously, combined with sanitary flows in these combined sewers. You've cut that capacity, or rather that load on the pipe, in half, and now the sewer pipe can truly function as a sewer pipe without overflowing. The drainage can act as drainage pipes without overflowing, because now they're separate systems. Now each of those systems has enough capacity to hold any sort of high intensity, short duration storm we get with that amount of runoff. So it will help, and it should help. And we don't want to spend all this money on this project for not to help. So that's the good news.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Right. Jesse, you're muted. Hold on, folks. Jesse, you're still muted.
Sorry, man, technology. Ranit looks like has another question.
Okay.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, guys. I did have another question. I just wanted to know, I think probably a lot of us on this call have this question, and that is like, is there any way that we can help you guys? Just like from practical things, like, is it useful to like let you know if you can use a driveway during the days, or like, you know, more kind of information flow things, like are there particular things you want to know from us as this is going on? Thanks.
I've never had a constituent offer that before.
That is a first. That's
You
great.
know, it's always nice to have another set of eyes out in the field. You know, we have our resident engineer, Gary, from Stantec, who will be overseeing Geoso. But, you know, to go back to Joel's question earlier, if you see some patch of pavement that, you know, temporary trench, and you don't think that it looks great, feel free to shoot me a photo. You can text me a photo and I'll look into it. You know, I think kind of the same thing if there's sort of major traffic issues that you are seeing. That feedback is something we'd like to know as well. But yeah, I'll have to think more. I'm not used to that kind of question. So.
Great.
Yeah, no, I mean, thank you for the consultation. I think, like, you know, if there's anything that we can do to make it go more smoothly, I think everyone is on board for that. So yeah.
You know, a big part is just being in this meeting so that you and the rest of the attendees are informed. That's a big thing for us, because then we don't have to have the same conversation over and over again. I mean, we'll continue to have conversations, but having, you know, 50 people here hearing what's going to happen is great. And we really thank you all for being here. All right. You know, one of the things I didn't mention in the beginning of the meeting, as you know, we used to do this when we did it in person, is I wanted to just reflect on the goodwill of the city councilor. He really kind of reached out to me, you know, Councilor Benyon Campen, and asked if we would have this meeting for, you know, his ward. And we first said no. No, of course he said yes. So I just want to actually unmute him so he can kind of say a little few words about the project. And if you can unmute Ben, please.
Good evening, Councilor.
Hi. I'll be brief. I really appreciate all the questions that have been asked tonight, and I'm really thankful to you two for putting this meeting together, but also just having gone through the large scale construction in Union Square over the course of, you know, took between 2 and 3 years. I'm well aware that it's both legitimately really impactful, and there's no sugarcoating that. It's really hard. And especially in the early stages, you know, there's when people are kind of getting used to the new normal, that can be really challenging. But I also am really pleased to say that I feel like the work that Jesse and Dan and others in the city did, at least from my perspective, really helped build up trust, that they were serious about being responsive, and that, you know, this is why we created these roles. So my hope here is that, while there, you know, speaking frankly, already have been issues, I will also say that they've also been addressed very quickly. And so I just want to reiterate that people really should not feel shy about reaching out on issues big and small. And myself, Dan, Jesse, and, you know, this also will involve other departments. You know, the police department runs the details, the traffic and parking department runs some of the signage stuff. You know, we will be working overtime to try to handle these issues. And we're also not going to sugarcoat the fact that large construction is not easy. So thank you all.
Thank you, Councilor, for your continued support of this project. And we look forward to working with you and the community on it. before we sign off, are there any other questions? I don't see any hands raised.
I think we've got Ronit again. Ronit, did you have another question?
No, sorry, that is a legacy hand.
Okay, not a problem. Thank you.
Just a high five.
Very good.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you all for attending this evening. And once again, Dan, you want to go back to the contact page real quick? You know, I'm available to you. Any questions, big or small, please reach out. Do not feel shy. We are in this together. It's a long-term project, and we want to be able to make this as smooth as possible. And hopefully we'll be talking soon.
And one last note, we'll aim to have this meeting, at least the presentation here, posted at the end of the week here by end of day Friday. So for those who want to refer back to some of the previous slides, again, our aim is to have this up on the website by the end of the week so that you can do so. But in the meantime, and going forward, please don't hesitate to reach out. All right. Well, thank you all for your time. Appreciate you spending your Wednesday evening with us, and we look forward to working with you and hearing from you.